When a model and an influencer get invited to partake in a cruise with the mega rich, things do not go as planned, to say the least. I'm John Stark from MacroGuy.com, and this is my review of Triangle of Sadness. I'm a blind film critic, and I review films with audio description, or I review films as presented without audio description if the studio so chooses to never record an audio description track. And I was actually thinking about doing a video for Triangle of Sadness where we would watch me watch Triangle of Sadness. My RRR video did quite well. It's like almost at 100 views, which is ridiculous, but I didn't do it for this one. I don't know how many people actually want to watch me watch a movie. It seems weird. I mean, it was an interesting concept, but I didn't do it here. This film did not have audio description when it released in theaters. I had confirmation from a friend who saw it in theaters. And it does not have audio description when you rent it. Neon is one of the studios that just fuck blind people, so well, fuck you. I'm reviewing your film as is, as you present it to me, with no audio description. And if I was on a voting committee for anything, I would have to vote for it based on how you presented it to me, with lack of accessibility. So there's no need for this. This film won the Cannes Palme d'Or, so it's like, what were you afraid of? Investing in this film? Like, you knew you were going to be investing in this film from the beginning. Why does this film not have audio description? This is not some like obscure little, I'm not like yelling at you for some film nobody's ever heard of. This film is, it's a Golden Globe nominated film at this point. It still doesn't have audio description. So it's just very frustrating to sit here and be like, because then it just seems like a choice. It's just like a lazy choice. Like, fuck them. They don't need to see this. Fuck blind people. Fuck the visually impaired. They don't. So I watched it. Read it off of iTunes so that we could talk about the experience of watching Triangle of Sadness without audio description. And it has a fair amount of dialogue to it. I had about the same amount of about the same experience that I had with this one I had with Emily the Criminal, which were, there were scenes that I enjoyed. There were scenes that worked for me because they were just dialogue scenes back and forth. Like in Emily the Criminal, when she finds out that the thing was an unpaid internship, that her monologue was fantastic. I didn't need audio description to hear her monologue and her just like tearing apart the idea of unpaid internships. That was just a well-written monologue. But I did need audio description for a lot of other things in that film. Here, Dolly Deleon has a really fantastic moment in the third act, where she plays a member of the staff. So Triangle of Sadness has a little bit of a theme of this class warfare, the wealthy versus the the janitorial staff, the people who make things happen on the ship. And when in the third act, when they are stranded on an island, I'll just tell you, they get stranded on an island. I think everybody has kind of heard this film is presented in 3 acts and they're in 3 different places. So the third, they're on an island for the third act of the film. She seems to be the only one with any sort of discernible skill set. So she's the only one who actually has any sort of survival skills. She's wandering around with all these wealthy people. And she has control over, she's the one that made the fire, she's the one that caught the fish and everything. And so she does this Captain Phillips, I am the captain now thing, where she makes them all call her captain. before she gives them a piece of fish to eat. So it was a great moment, and I didn't need to know. I didn't really need the audio description there because I figured out what was happening, and it was kind of a great moment for anybody who's ever wanted to flip the table, you know, to just turn the table around and be like, who's got the power now, bitch? Who's the one that knows how to make a fire? Who's the one that actually knows how to catch fish? None of you have discernible skill sets other than, you know, how to invest in stocks and stuff like that, and take really cool photos and become insta famous. You know, I'm the one with real world skills. So that was a cool scene. And Dolly Deleon really does some good work in the second and third act. She's not in the first act. The first act is pretty much Harris, Dickenson, and Charlie B. Dean, who Charlie passed. One of the main stars of this film suddenly passed away. So watching the first part of the film and knowing that was really sobering, I guess you could say. I felt like I was being introduced to somebody at the same time that they were also already gone. So I don't think I'd ever seen any performance of hers before. But that was it. Yep. And then the second part of the film, they're on the ship. That's that segment where, if you've heard Woody Harrelson is in the film, he's the captain of the ship. And then the third act of the film is when they're on the island. So it's in 3 acts, and there's this idea of who has the money kind of throughout the whole thing, who has the power, who has the money, who's on top, who's on bottom, that kind of thing throughout the whole film. And I was able to pick up on the themes, but there are a lot of times in this film where dialogue is not happening, or it's really hard to know what's going on because of certain things. Scenes that were just lost in translation. I looked up some stuff. I will admit I don't usually do that for films. Just to kind of get a better understanding of what it was. When I heard something, I was like, what was that thing? So I tried finding a thing because I heard things, and I didn't quite get, there's no audio description. And in one regard, there's a scene, there's in Act 2, bodily fluids everywhere. And I don't know. When you can't see it, there's no audio description, my stomach did not churn. You know, I was not. So that's the one positive note out of the whole thing, is that I didn't get to hear about the shitting and vomiting that happens when apparently everybody gets sick on the boat, and this film does not shy away from it. So I got to dodge that pleasant experience. But there were other times where I just was lost, because this is not a dialogue heavy film. It has dialogue, but it's not dialogue heavy. It's not a talky film. Ruben Oslo has created a film that feels like it's able to convey its themes, sure, but at the same time, it also needs to use, obviously, a lot of shots, a lot of, he's very artistic. A Palme d'Or winner is usually going to be a Palme d'Or winner because there's artistic choices happening, not because somebody wrote a really great script with some great dialogue. So that's out there. It's pretty much unwatchable. It's really hard to say that you're going to get the full experience out of this. It has an expansive cast to try to pay attention to. And it's also really hard because most of them are unknown. Uh, you have Woody Harrelson, sure. But even somebody like Dickenson, who's done a couple of things, I just don't know that people have memorized his voice. I don't know that when Dickenson walks into a film, people are like, oh, that's him. I can track his voice throughout the remainder of the film. I think this film uses a lot of just talent that general audiences are unfamiliar with, which doesn't really help blind audiences follow them. And then they don't speak enough necessarily for you to grab a hold of their character or to even learn their character name. There is one guy in here who has a really unique tone to his voice. It's kind of a raspy, older guy tone. So I kind of was able to follow him as a character when he spoke. Sort of like you could follow Danny Trejo, like, oh, Danny Trejo's talking, like, only one person sounds like that. But yeah, it's, I just had a lot of problems following. And it would have been nice, by the way, for a film to talk about opulence and to sell us on this, upstairs, downstairs concept, to actually see the opulence, to actually have that described to us in audio description. I'm sure there was a lot of intention put behind that, put behind the way people are dressed, put behind the way, the kinds of food that they eat, just the kind of lifestyle that they are leading versus the lifestyle that their staff is leading in this film. So to see that would have been definitely a more winning experience than it actually is. The action sequence in this is not as impactful as it could be because of the lack of audio description. There's just a lot of things in this film that I could have better audio description. The ending is super confusing, by the way, without audio description. It just feels like the film just it just ends. There's actually a huge plot element that you wouldn't pick up on, that I found out when I Googled some stuff. And I was like, oh, I did not know that. Yeah, so the whole ending of the film is lost, and that's the film part that some people have been debating as to like what it means. And for me, it's just like, I didn't even get that. The ending of the film just seemed to me like we just kind of stopped, If I saw this in theaters, I'd be like, did we lose a reel? Like what happened? It's such an abrupt ending to the film. Yeah, I don't know that I'm crazy about the film anyway. I don't know where this would end up on my list if it did have audio description. Emily the Criminal, I felt like was made for me, and I was really disappointed that film didn't have audio description because I think it had a shot at top 10. I could tell from what it was doing and from what I was able to enjoy that if I just knew what the fuck was going on for the half of the film that has no dialogue, that would have been hope. Here, even the dialogue that did exist, I didn't find to be as funny as everybody's like, this is a comedy, and to sell it as a con pomme d'or. So unless the audio description is going to make up all that ground, unless there was a lot of like really cool shots and a lot of physical comedy, there really wasn't a lot that I laughed at. There was some of it that was just sort of very pointed at that certain discussion, of what is wealth and who has it and who doesn't, and what does it mean to have it and to not have it. But it didn't necessarily. It's not necessarily laugh out loud, rolling the eyes funny. I think if I was in an audience of Triangle of Sadness people, I don't think that that would be the case. I have a feeling there are people who are finding it like funny in that sort of like highbrow, intelligent way. Like, oh, I like what he said there. I like what he has to say. But that dialogue can only go just so far. It's not in every scene, and there's a lot of this that I didn't get. So Neon needs to get their shit together and explain things in audio description to blind and visually impaired people. So, fuck you, Neon. I'm gonna give Triangle of Sadness the grade of unwatchable. The sad thing is that I'm seriously considering putting Dolly Deleon possibly in my best supporting actress top 10. I thought from what she did at the end, even the little bit that I was able to pick up on, I thought she came in and you could tell just from her presence and the way that she was delivering her dialogue, she just wasn't having it. Like, there was no, and it's like nobody could, in this like Lord of the Flies situation, you could tell that people were annoyed that this person was coming from the bottom and telling them what to do. But at the same time, they all realize, shit, we do actually have no discernible skill sets. She's the only one who actually does. If we kill her, we're fucked. So, yeah, they needed her to stay alive. So there was nothing she could do. And she knew that, and she owned it. And the demands that she makes and how she takes control of the situation is kind of hilarious. And I like the fact that this actress out of nowhere, somebody like Dolly Deleon, is getting noticed. She's like 52, 53, and she's finally, everybody's like, oh, we're on board now. We're recognizing this actress, so good for her. She got a Golden Globe nomination. Maybe she'll get more roles offered to her in the future. Probably not, but Hollywood doesn't welcome everybody who gets nominations. Doesn't expand the careers for everybody, but we'll see. But I don't know what I'm going to do with this film when I put it in my top 10 lists, but I do actually think the bulk of it is unwatchable. So don't waste your time. I did it for you, so you don't have to. Or at least wait until it's free on a streaming service. I rented this, so yeah, thanks for watching, and please subscribe so I can continue to talk about films with audio description or without audio description, and keep holding these companies to the flame, and holding them accountable. I hold Neon accountable for this release and the lack of audio description. So that's just what I want to talk about and what I want to do. I have a website, macthemovieguy.com. You can go and follow me on Twitter at macthemovieguy, Instagram at macthemovieguy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. It'll let you know who is narrating your favorite films and television shows when they actually are films that have audio description. That's it for me. I will review something else and see you guys on the other side.